Welcome to In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. And our visit with Marty Brennaman continues. This is part 2, and this is his career with the Cincinnati Reds, his Hall of Fame career with the Cincinnati Reds, his iconic career with the Cincinnati Reds. He talks some Big Red Machine stories. He talks about his favorite baseball team, which I think will surprise you. And very interesting when you hear about that. And of course, he talks about this year's edition of the Cincinnati Reds and what to look for, strengths, weaknesses, all of that. Marty Brennaman, nothing better than listening to Marty Brennaman talk baseball. In our conversations in the past, you mentioned, I think I'm right in saying this, correct me obviously if I'm wrong, but is one of your favorite teams the 90 World Series team?
That's my favorite team.
That's what I thought.
I mean, with all due respect to, the teams that they had in the mid-'70s and the nickname that was put on them, the Big Red Machine.
Right.
And arguably one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the history of the game.
Absolutely.
This 90 club, nobody gave them a chance to win anything. I mean, the experts just picked everybody and didn't think this team had a chance to do anything. They opened the season on the road. They go into first place with an extra inning game against the Astros when Barry Larkin tripled with the bases loaded in the 11th inning. And they never vacated first place. And everybody had everybody's back. It was truly a family, and it transcended race and creed and everything else. And then to go into the postseason and a prohibitive underdog, they beat Pittsburgh in 6 games, and then they sweep the Oakland Athletics, and everybody was talking about building a powerhouse. It was just a fun team to be around, and a whole bunch of likable guys, and that's because of that. That's my favorite team.
It's interesting. All 3 Super Bowls that the Bengals have played in, Super Bowl 16, Super Bowl 23, and Super Bowl 56, in all 3 instances, the team went from last place to first place in the division, finished last place in the division. All 3 times went from worst to first. And it gives hope for, every team to live that type of experience. Let's talk about this Cincinnati Reds edition this year, baseball team. A lot of changes, a lot of disgruntled fans with some of the players that were moved on. And it doesn't seem to be a ton of high hopes. But sometimes in a situation like this, teams surprise people. What are your expectations for the Cincinnati Reds this year, Marty?
Well, if we'd have done this show 2 weeks ago, I'd have probably had a very dim opinion. But I've grown in following this team, and I'm not here to say that I think they're going to win the division, because I don't think that.
Right.
I think the 2 best teams, certainly Milwaukee on paper has the best team in the division. The Cardinals have to prove on the field that they can compete with Milwaukee and be good enough to try to win the division themselves. I don't think the Cubs have improved themselves. I think the Cubs have taken a step back. This club is going to do something, if they stand by what they've said, that will make them stand out, and it's going to be something that they're going to do out of necessity, because they've lost the power of Castellanos, they've lost the power of Jesse Winker, so they don't have a whole lot of power. They're going to go now to a speed game,
right?
And they're going to have speed at the top of the batting order, and Jonathan India and Tyler Naquin, and Tommy Pham. And then they're going to have speed at the bottom of the order with Nick Senzel. And when he's in the lineup, Jake Fraley, the kid they got from Seattle in the big trade with Suarez and Winker. This is going to be, if they stay with it, and I underline that, because if they go try to live by the home run, they're going to have a long, long season, because they don't have that many threats in the lineup outside of Joey Votto and Mike Moustakas. And Naquin, of course, stepped up big last year with a career season. This is going to be a throwback to how it was when all of a sudden the only thing that matters in this game now is home runs, strikeouts, and walks.
Right.
Now you're going to have a team that will try to steal bases. You're going to have a team that's going to play hit and run. You're going to have a team that takes extra bases, and they've shown that in spring training. And
Yep.
I think that in and of itself will present a certain level of excitement on the field that fans have not seen in a long, long time. The pitching bothers me, but it seems like the last number of years it always has. They've taken a hit for my money and I don't know that Sonny Gray was basically a 5-inning pitcher, and he's been traded. Wade Miley was claimed off the waiver wire by the Cubs, and they're going to open the year without Luis Castillo and the newly acquired Mike Minor
Yep.
on the disabled list. So they're going to probably open the season with 2 rookies in their rotation, in Hunter Greene, a right-hander, and left-hander Nick Lodolo, the kid out of Texas Christian, who was both of them were number 1 draft picks. I don't care how good you are. It's very rare that if you have 2 rookies, you're going to have to live with their ups and downs the first year to get their feet wet and reach a level of maturity that would be incumbent upon them to be a good big league pitcher. So you're going to have to live with that. I think the bullpen to begin the year appears to be stronger, even though Lucas Sims won't be back for a while. So I think if you're asking me, can they win the division? I don't think so. Are you asking me, can they surprise some people? If certain things happen, I think they can. Now, how big a surprise that is, that has to be played out over 162 games. But the fact that they're going to approach the game the way they are talking about, that's kind of exciting because there are not too many clubs in baseball today that do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's contrarian baseball to
Right.
what you say. It's everybody loves the long ball. Everybody wants to see the long ball, and you're exactly right. It's square it up or walk or strike out.
That's it. That's what it's all about.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
How about defensively, Marty? In your estimation, do you think that this ball club can be a pretty salty defensive ball club?
I think the defense in the outfield is going to be appreciably better because you've got guys that can run out there. At all three, you're going to have Pham and left. I'm a big fan of Tommy Pham.
Mm-hmm.
When they acquired him, they signed him. I was in proud of care that he's 34 years old. He can still run. He can hit for power, and he's a good outfielder. And then they've got Nick Senzel, and God bless the organization for making the decision. We're not going to screw around with him now and say he's going to play center field, but now all of a sudden we're hurting as a backup at shortstop behind Kyle Farmer. So maybe we'll play. They are adamant about the fact that he's been a center fielder from day one in the camp, and that's where he's going to play. And I think that's the only way that he can ever reach the kind of potential that people have for him as a possible one-day Gold Glove player. In right field, they'll do some platooning probably, but the kid I'm at, Jake Fraley, he will play against right-handed pitching, and he's got speed. So I like their outfield. With all due respect, I think they're weak on the corners. Joey Votto is not the same Joey Votto he was when he won the Gold Glove. Mike Moustakas' range is limited over at third. At second base, they're good with India. At shortstop, I'm a big fan of Kyle Farmer. All the crap all went along about trading him and bringing Barrero to the big leagues as the second coming of Ernie Banks. I didn't dig that. I thought that Farmer deserved to be the incumbent shortstop, and now he's going to be that. And behind the plate, they got a kid that's good enough. I think that unfortunately they had to part company with Tucker Barnhart, and that's Tyler Stephenson. And I think this kid's going to be a big-time player with a lot of power. Because he's a man now. It's not a matter of spotting him in certain positions. And the other thing is, Dave, that the fact that the DH, like it or not, is coming to the National League is going to benefit teams like the Reds because, and for that matter, they'll probably benefit everybody because you can take a Joey Votto and DH him to get him away from having to play the position defensively for a game or two, but you keep his bat in the lineup. I think that's a good thing. So I think the club will be better defensively in the outfield. I think they'll be pretty darn good up the middle with Stephenson and India and Farmer and Senzel. I think they'll be a little bit short on the corners on the infield.
Interesting, Marty. Joey Votto, you mentioned limitations defensively comparing to prior years. What about at the plate? I mean, he just popped a 465-foot home run here yesterday, I think it was.
Yeah.
So, and he's playing a lot. He's playing a lot of innings in spring training, and it's intentional. He wants to get off to a good start. He's had problems getting off to those good starts. Do you like what he's doing?
Yeah, I do. Guy's a hitting machine. He had a couple of years that were down years. He's able to come back and had a big year last year. And the fact that anything that Joey Votto does in spring training, and this is a privilege that you accord all the great players or the extra special players, you let them get ready at their own pace. They know what they have to do. I'm sure you see that in football. They know what they have to do. And so they pretty much leave him alone. He will express what he wants to accomplish in spring training to David Bell, and that's good enough. You're off and running, and you do what you want to do. And I think it's going to pay off for him. He's 38 years old, and will be. And I know Votto fans don't like to hear this, but I think the bad years that he's had pretty much mean that he needs to have a good year this year. He's got one more year after this season with the Reds, and then who knows what might happen after that. But and as Joey Votto goes, so go the Reds. He's their bell cow. If he has a good year, then this club can surprise some people.
David Bell, you made mention of. I'm a big fan of the Bell family in general. I think Buddy Bell is one of the best human beings I've ever met in my life, as well as a great player. And had the privilege of coaching with Ron Roth and coaching Mike, who late great Mike Bell. And you talk about a pure human being. This kid, one of my favorite people of all time as well. So what about David Bell as a manager in Major League Baseball? Obviously, I think he has tremendous respect of his players. Am I accurate with that, Marty?
Yeah, I think you are very accurate with that. And I agree with everything you said about the Bell family. It was a tragedy to end all tragedies that Mike passed away so suddenly at a young age. And Buddy and I go back to when he played with the Reds and coming from Texas in the 80s. And even before that, I got to know his dad, Gus, through Joe. And so I knew the Bell family pretty well. To raise youngsters like David, as Buddy and his wife did, is special. I mean, because all those guys have been class acts in the game of baseball, no matter where they might have worked. And David definitely has a respect of his players. He seems to be confident about the hand he has been dealt, although you have to really wonder if he doesn't wonder, with Castellanos gone and Winker gone and Suarez gone, and how good this club can be. And I'm sure he and his coaching staff will work as hard as they can to try and prove a lot of people wrong about their prognostications in 2022.
So there's always, leaders on teams that evolve, and sometimes teams have multiple, leaders, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's always a good thing. It doesn't just have to always fall on the shoulders of one guy.
Right.
In your estimation, are there multiple leaders, multiple players with the current Cincinnati Reds baseball team that, when going gets tough, guys can rely on?
That's a good question, because I think that I don't really know, Dave. I think there potentially there are some people. I think Jonathan India will evolve into a leader on this club because of the approach that he has on the field. But I mean, this guy is coming into his sophomore year at the big league level. He comes off a Rookie of the Year award season. I think Tyler Stephenson down the road will be that kind of guy. I think Kyle Farmer if you had to categorize somebody in that clubhouse that can handle a lot of the leadership roles, and I think in a quiet sort of way, Joey Votto would fall into that category. He's not a raw kind of guy, but neither was Barry Larkin. And they exude their leadership abilities in a very quiet, subtle manner. in the clubhouse, not for everybody to see. You talk about multiple leaders. The Big Red Machine had Rose and Bench and Perez and Morgan. They were the big four, and they were all leaders.
Yep.
And that's a good thing. But you have to have somebody or some guys that you can go to when times are rough, and they will hear you out and they will try to help you in any way they can. And I think the guys I mentioned are guys that probably have those capabilities.
Another guy on the coaching staff that I hear glowing reports about, just from all over in baseball, Derek Johnson, the pitching coach. What is it about him, Marty? What is it about Derek Johnson?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Dave, he's just a special guy. I mean, he knows pitching in and out. He was incredibly successful as a pitching coach at Vanderbilt University for a lot of years. And he just develops great relationships individually with the pitchers that he tutors. And he's the kind of guy that will do everything he can to bring to the forefront your abilities without going in and radically changing everything you do. He won't, he bends over backwards not to do that. He's intensely loyal to his pitchers. I give Dick Williams and his people a lot of credit because they're the ones, when Dick was running the operation, that flew down to Nashville and talked Derek Johnson into coming to Cincinnati and leaving Milwaukee, where he had already established a good relationship with those people. They're very fortunate to have him. And this pitching staff, or any pitching staff that he is a coach of and responsible for, is going to be better in the long term if they stay healthy, just because of his ability, his knowledge, and his ability to teach you the things that you need to do to become a better pitcher.
It's amazing. You have to have the physical abilities, obviously, and then the intangibles. But I mean, it seems like the word patience, it applies, in so many sports. But I think in baseball, isn't patience maybe as good an attribute as anybody can have?
Without any question, especially if you're a manager or a coach. And you watch a guy whose potential is off the charts, a high pick, a number one pick. Hunter Greene, he's been in the minor leagues for a long time, but he unfortunately had Tommy John surgery, and at 22 years old, after signing, 5 years ago out of high school in California, now he's going to be in the opening day rotation. And I'm sure that there have been many things that they've worked with this kid on, most notably and most recently, I think, to establish better command and to, throw more strikes. His stuff is indisputable, as is this kid, Nick Lodolo. But you still have to have the patience, as Derek does, to understand that as good as they are still going to hit some bumps and mountains to overcome, learning how it is to pitch up here and face the best hitters in the world day in and day out. I used to remember, with the game so enamored now with pitching, 100 miles an hour. Everybody's crazy. Everybody in captivity, you throw 100 miles an hour, but yet they lose their minds in talking about it on television and radio. Everybody does it. It's no big deal anymore. But Joe Morgan used to say, and this is way back now in the 70s, and they had some guys, granted that not as many, but you had the Nolan Ryans of the world. Yeah. You had the James Rodney Richards of the world. You had some guys that can really heat up. And Joe Morgan would say, in this league, they can't throw it hard enough to throw it by us. And I'll tell you what, in many respects, it's the same way today. Now, you'll have guys that, because of how hard they throw, that on a given day will overpower a lot of hitters. But you'll also see guys, I read it the last start for Hunter Greene, he got roughed up. And somebody hit a home run off of him on a pitch that was clocked at 101 miles an hour. So these guys know how to hit big league pitching, and they know how to hit guys that throw hard. It's the other things that Derek Johnson has the patience to work on to try and give you one or two more pitches for the hitters to think about, like a changeup. I know that's a big pitch And they tell me, and Joe used to say the same thing, it's the easiest pitch in the world to learn how to throw. A slider, a curveball, whatever the case might be, Derek Johnson has all those in his bag of tricks that he tries to work with certain pitches on, with a certain pitch that he feels will really help them. And patience, without any question, is one of his major attributes.
Marty, I know we're going to let you go. We'll wrap it up with this, and certainly do appreciate you carving all the time you did for us. This was unbelievably phenomenal. You've had so many experiences in all levels of sports and multiple sports. I guess this question might be impossible, but do you have an all-time favorite person, whether it be player, coach, whatever, that you worked with or you dealt with throughout all your years, Marty? Is there anybody, or maybe a couple of people that come to mind that this guy was definitely a special human being, changed my life?
Well, I mean, the two guys that I was closest to were Pete and Joe Morgan. Mm-hmm. And we maintained that closeness long after all of us stepped away from the game. And Joe passing away 2 years ago was devastating.
Yeah.
And I still talk to Pete frequently. So I'm with great prejudice. I cherish their friendship. But I don't think there's one person, Dave. Sparky Anderson was great with me.
Yep.
He took me under his wing and taught me an awful lot. I was a huge fan of Lou Pinella's. It was a thrill a minute being around him every day. I loved it. There's so many people that I could point out that really I had tremendous affection for. And I'm sure, same with you all years you've been involved in the game of football, specifically the pros. You probably feel the same way, but it's nice to come across good people because, like it or not, a lot of these people involved in this game, especially in my business, and I commented on that on Twitter the other day, think the game is played because of them. Mm-hmm. And that ain't the way it works. And I feel sorry for those people. If they think they're so great that people are going to turn on the radio or turn on the TV because they're doing the game, that's a bunch of crap. Now maybe Scully would be an exception to that. I think Vinny might be an exception to that. But any of you guys that think that people listen to you and they don't care about who's playing, they tune in and listen to you. They are so full of it, it's a damn shame.
You ain't kidding, Coach. There's no question about that. And I will just say that you mentioned the word genuine, when you were talking about the people that you have a tremendous amount of respect for. And I can say that Marty Brennaman is without a doubt one of the most genuine human beings I've ever met in my life. You're a special human being, Mr. Brennaman. You really are.
I appreciate you feeling that way, Dave, but you're prejudiced because we're old friends. And every time we're together, which is infrequently, we have a lot of laughs.
True.
We talk a lot of things that we can't talk about even on a damn podcast.
Very true.
And it's a lot of fun. And I have great respect for you and Dan because of the fact that you're damn good people. Life's too short to hang around people that are obnoxious and overbearing and turn people off. So as I said before, when you cross paths with people that are legitimately fine people, they're the ones that you really root like the dickens for.
I hear that, Coach. Marty, I can't thank you enough again. A real pleasure, joy. And
be sure to tell your boy David Burke I didn't put him to sleep, did
I? No, he's on every word now.
Okay, that's fine.
Best to Amanda. You guys enjoy yourselves down there in Carolina, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, David. Enjoyed being with you.
Same here, Marty. Thanks.
Hey, pal. You bet.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realize self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.